Welcome Legionnaires to another video. Today we will discuss what is Warhammer, the Horus Heresy. This video is aimed at returning players who maybe have had a break with the game, or new players who are looking to get into the game with the new box set, and maybe for existing players so you might get some inspiration. So let's get started. Most certainly a lot of people start the question with getting into the new game. What is the Horus Heresy? The Horus Heresy is a prequel game to Warhammer 40k. Some would call it a Warhammer historical, quite fitting because it has aspects of both. While it's not real history, we know that it's history in the Warhammer setting, and it also comes with its perks. While it's hard to make up your own historical units in Bold Action or other historical games, the Legiones Astartes are so massive you can do your own company, lore, personnel, and sometimes even color schemes, so that you have maybe not as much freedom in 40k, but it's not as set in stone as a lot of people want it to be. The Black Books are always an awesome source for making your legion your own, while obviously the most legions have the main color scheme as they are mostly displayed with. The Black Books always show alternatives and try to inspire you to make your own. This means that maybe when you see the 22nd Ultramarines Nemesis chapter of the Ultramarines Legion, you think, oh well, those are black armored Ultramarines with blue details. Maybe I do that for, who knows, your own Word Bearers Legion. You have a destroyer company for your Word Bearers, and maybe you're not choosing to paint them black, but an even darker shade of crimson. And you add the main silver details so you could recognize them as Word Bearers. So you are not completely set on a color scheme. You could even play a little bit with the color scheme. So for example, if your company was embarked on a desert world and fighting a guerrilla war on a desert planet against something, and the Horus Heresy broke out, you could choose to go for a mainly tanned color scheme on the Legiones Astartes, because they wanted to camouflage themselves on the sands, but have remaining hints at the Legion. On your Space Marine, for example, you leave the shoulder plates like they were before. For the Ultramarines, for example, that would mean you give them the iconic golden trim with the blue shoulder pads, but everything else maybe is painted in a camouflage or a tan scheme. You can definitely do that, and there's examples of that in the Black Books. So you are not 100% set on the color scheme of a Legion. Coming to the broader heresy, and maybe that the legions with their color schemes are not your kind of thing because you either don't care for Space Marines or you don't like the color schemes for the Space Marines, you could always do Black Shields. Black Shields are more or less neutral Space Marine factions that have split from their own legion to fight on their own. Maybe their legion did something that disgraced them and they didn't want to have any part of that anymore. So the Black Shields fight either for themselves, the Emperor, or Horus the War Master. And while they are named Black Shields, you can paint them in any color you like. Maybe one of the famous first founding successor chapters of the Ultramarines, for example. While in the Horus Heresy the main protagonists are Space Marines, they are not even the most numerous fighting force. Even though there's overall way more Space Marines in the Horus Heresy, at least in the beginning, than in Warhammer 40k, the humans do also fight for the Imperium. And while we don't know the fate of the Imperialis Militia, your standard human fighter, we definitely know that the Solar Auxilia, an elite human fighting force will still remain in the game, so maybe you can have your own auxiliar force, and with the solo auxiliar the paint schemes are fair game. As well as the forces of mass, the mechanicum. Every forge will probably have their own color scheme, or even every Magos has their own color scheme. And then you have the talents of the Emperor, which consist of the mysterious Sisters of Silence and the Auric Custodians, or even the malicious demons of the Ruinstorm, who are vastly different from the demons in Warhammer 40k, because the war started to break open during the disastrous war that is the Horus Heresy. As you can see, the Horus Heresy offers quite the variety, way more than it seems like in the first glance, eh? So, when we are talking about the Horus Heresy, obviously it's a tabletop game. What is the tabletop game of the Horus Heresy like? The game system of the Horus Heresy was in the previous edition, and this upcoming edition that is to be released soon, meant to be played in bigger games. That means while the usual normal 40k games peak at 2k points, the real fun in the Horus Heresy begins north of 2500 points, because that's when you can unleash the truly unsettling weapon. With all the new releases that have been teased for the Horus Heresy, for example the 20-man squad boxes or the 10-man Terminator boxes, you can see that there's a definite scale difference between the Horus Heresy and Warhammer 40k. Obviously you can play 10-man tactical squads, you can just use one Rhino, you can choose to not use a Spartan and only use Predators or their equivalents, but usually the Horus Heresy is way bigger, as we see with the Kratos tank that was released, or will be released rather, and the Spartan. Those things are super heavy choices, or Lords of War in the Warhammer 40k universe for a Space Marine chapter, while a Space Marine Legion at the height of the Imperium has way more access to such devastating weapons, and you will see them more often on the battlefield than in Warhammer 40k, and that's kinda the gist of the Heresy. The fights are bigger. The new edition seems to get a little bit more fast with the advanced reactions and everything that people have played on the Horus Heresy Open Day, and so you have bigger games, but I don't expect them to last much longer than Warhammer 40k games. As you can see from this explanation and with the scale, the Horus Heresy is definitely something for collectors who want to have big armies and want to play them. Obviously you can do that in 40k as well, but it's more encouraged in the Heresy. And also it's not as easy to include a 700 point Lord of War in your Horus Heresy army, because they are bound to a certain amount of points, a set percentage which was in the rulebook, and I expect it to be in the new rulebook. So for example, if you are playing 2500 points, you can have a super heavy that's up to 625 points, because that's 25% of 2500. So if you want to bring the big baddies like the Mastodons, the Glaives, the Stormbirds and the Thunderhawks, you have to play bigger games, and they become even deadlier the bigger they are. It's an awesome game and you will definitely love it. The Horus Heresy as a game system, while it was intimidating before because it has big resin vehicles, I think most of them will come over to plastic, and it will be so much fun to help new people get into the game and play with the new plastic toys, because we do it to be joyous, right? Then let's talk about a little bit the Horus Heresy painting at the level of the actual painting process. A lot of people in the Horus Heresy community are awesome painters. There are so many exceptionally skilled painters in the Heresy community, but that should not intimidate you. Nobody of them is shy to share his recipe on how to paint his models. There is definitely a lot of tutorials out there, and I think if you find something amazing on social media and ask the artist, he will definitely tell you how he painted his stuff. So maybe from the outside looking at the awesome hobby that is done in the Horus Heresy, you shouldn't let yourself be intimidated, because the people will always help you. And I have experienced that myself. When I started playing the Horus Heresy, my painting was not very good. After a couple of years, my painting is a little bit decent now, and I'm not afraid to show my models online. And when I can learn it, you can learn it too. And if you need help with painting Iron Warriors, I will most definitely show you how I painted mine, if they are interesting to you. Well, that was quite the explanation. That is at least what I think is at the core of the Horus Heresy. I probably haven't touched upon everything, and if there's something I haven't touched upon, please join our Discord server, where there's a lot of very nice people that talk heresy and will definitely try to help you as well. Thank you all for listening. Stay healthy, keep the heresy train rolling, and bye bye.